أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Can I hear an answer, please? A really loud one. Normally at workshop, you have such quiet answers, and I have to ask you whether you had breakfast or not this morning. So if you've had breakfast this morning, I need a really loud answer. What do you say? Wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, right. I need really loud salawat, please. Oh my goodness, I've got to say salah al nabi. Can you say that? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Okay, that's great. Right, what's the date today? Do you know what the date is? Oh, I know you're going to tell me the 30th of May, as you always tell me at workshop. So it's the 30th of May. But what is the Islamic date today? Can you tell me that, please? What is the Islamic date? Tell me. Anybody know? Try. Okay, Shawwal, but what day of Shawwal is it? Do you know? So when was Eid? Monday or Sunday? Okay, say it's Monday. It's the first. So today would be the 6th of Shawwal. Okay, what are the times of Salah? Can you tell me the times of Salah, please? Fajr. Can you give me Fajr, please? What time was Fajr this morning? It's Saturday, the 6th of Shawwal, 30th of May. What was Fajr? 2:33. Okay. Zohar, what time is Zohar? What time are you going to pray Zohar? Do you know? 1:04. Asr, I know you find it hard to look for Asr. So you have to Google it because most of the Jamaat calendars don't have it. It's about 5:15, 5:17. What about Maghrib? Now you would have known that if you are fasting. But what is Maghrib today? 9:17. And Isha, do you know what Isha is today? It's about 11 o'clock. It's about 10:55. Okay, so just as we normally do at workshop, let's just first look at what's in the news today. Do you know what's in the news today? Have you looked it up? Have you read it? Have you watched TV as far as news is concerned? Okay, we all know everybody knows about COVID-19, about the coronavirus. So there's a few restrictions that are going to be lifted this week. Is that what you're trying to tell me? So 6 people from different households can meet in your garden, but with social distancing. And what is social distancing? Okay, keeping 2 meters apart, is that right? Okay, you wash your hands, you're careful, you wear masks if you can, all that is sorted out. Okay, what else is in the news? Riots in the States, okay, because somebody was killed. Do you know his name? Yep, George Floyd, okay, we know that. I've also been reading today, I was reading in The Guardian today, that lots of parents, because they're homeschooling, they want to become teachers. I think that's awesome. That's really, really awesome. Oh, I also read that Microsoft is going to employ robots and it's sort of replacing human beings with AI, which is artificial intelligence. Did you know that? Also, this spring is going to be, or is, the sunniest since records began. Why do you think that is? All right, so all these things we've got to think about in the news. But I'd like to talk today about the practices of Ramadan that we're going to take throughout the year. Because Ramadan was there sort of to start us off, to make us understand, to tell us about what we're supposed to do, right? Throughout the year, not just for the month of Ramadan. Now, it's not about fasting throughout the year, but there were certain things we did in Ramadan that we need to do throughout the year. Definitely fasting. I'm going to talk about that first. So it's good to fast. Abu Dhar Ghifari, he was a companion of the Prophet, really amazing guy. He says that the Prophet ordered them, he told the companions, you got to fast for 3 days of every month. And he said that's the days of the full moon, the 13th, 14th and the 15th, and it's like fasting for the whole year. So this month, the 13th, 14th and 15th will be next Saturday, next Sunday and Monday. So maybe you can fast one of those. I mean, you got used to fasting in Ramadan and it's phenomenal. It really is worth it. Okay, the second thing, and this you can do. It's awesome to listen and to recite Quran. Let me read you a hadith, okay? This says, one who listens to the Quran while it's being recited will be kept away from the evils of this world. And one who recites the Quran will be kept away from any difficult things in the hereafter. And the person who listens to even one verse of the Quran, it's better for him, listen to this, it's better for him than having a massive mansion of gold. Can you imagine? That's what this is saying. So it's absolutely awesome to listen and to recite. I know in Ramadan we used to recite a lot of Quran. So we've got to start now too. Okay, so we've got to keep it up. I know you come and do a workshop on a Saturday, and hopefully after this assembly, you're going to read, you're going to recite Quran, at least 5 ayat. Okay, 10. It's not that difficult. Won't take you that long. Look at what the Prophet says. He says, the house in which the Quran is recited and Allah is remembered will receive divine blessings. The angels will be present, and it shines for the people in the heavens like stars shine for the people of the earth. Can you imagine? Those angels looking down, they're going to look at your house, especially your bedrooms or your rooms or wherever you're reciting Quran, and they're going to see it as stars. So really important. So 1, fast. 2, Quran. The third thing, to pray on time, because it energizes the soul. You know, in Ramadan, we knew the exact time for Salatul Fajr. We knew the exact time for Maghrib because we wanted to break our fast. We do the same thing. At least find out the times. And okay, maybe you may pray Dhuhr and Asr together, and you may pray Maghrib and Isha together, but at least at Asr time, raise your hands in dua. At Isha time, raise your hands in dua, because the doors of Jannah are open, just as they are in Ramadan. Remember, we prayed in Ramadan. The Prophet in his sermon said that in Ramadan, the doors of Jannah are open and the doors of Jahannam are closed and Shaitan is imprisoned. So he said, pray to Allah that the doors of Jannah remain open for you forever, the doors of Jahannam are closed for you forever, and Shaitan is imprisoned forever. So when we prayed, and he says in Ramadan, all your du'as are accepted. And he also said in that sermon that it is at the times of Salah that Allah looks at his servants, those who submitted to him, with extra rahmah. So keep these times in mind. It's really, really important. Pray on time. It will energize your soul. Get all this nur, all this energy, divine energy. And the last thing, we'll add some more later on, but the last thing is, it's life-changing to pray Salatul Layl. I mean, that is namaz shab, whatever you want to call it. Just make it a habit. If you cannot pray just before Fajr, then pray just before you go to sleep. It's okay. And just 1 rakat, Salatul Witr, start with that. And then you might add Shafa, and then you might add all the others. But it's really, really important to do that. So 4 things we're going to talk about today. 4 things you must keep in mind. 1, it's good to fast. 2, Quran. 3, pray on time. 4, Salatul Layl. If we can do those 4 things from the month of Ramadan, can I add one more? Just one more. Let's start at least trying to eat a little healthier and not picking stuff in the middle of the day. Confine yourself to your main meals and see the difference it makes in your lives. It's so amazing. Okay, now what I wanted to talk to you about today is the 5 key areas of what we call learning. So what we've been thinking while we've been in lockdown and while workshop is closed, we've been thinking of how we're going to try and make sure that we continue learning online. Okay, I know all of you are doing online schools and you've got your lessons from school online and everything else. Well, we'd like to do the same thing. We're trying to set it up. So right now you may be having lessons from your teachers, whether they're on Class Dojo or Microsoft Teams or Zoom. I know all the teachers are using different things, but hopefully in a few weeks, we will try and put it together on one platform. But to do that, we also need to make it very, very simple. So you and us, all of us know, and we're going to have what I call a tripartite agreement. That's your moms and dads, are one side, that's parents, then you and us, as maybe we call ourselves teachers, but you are our teachers. So let's say teachers, parents, and students, we're going to have this agreement where we're going to start learning. So we've been thinking of lots of things, and we've come up with these 5 things. If you were to ask, or you were to know, what do we learn at workshop? What is it? So we've got 5 key areas of learning, and I'd like you to remember them. And I'll go through each one. I know they're on your screen. That's just a rough draft up there, but let's go through each one. So the first thing we thought was, how do we make sure that this learning becomes part of our life? You see, normally when we look at a traditional curriculum, like a normal syllabus, as you might want to call it, we find that there's so much text on it. And those who are rewarded, in other words, those who are the best, are those who can remember it. But Google can do that. Any search engine can do that. So we thought we had to move away from it. And what we really wanted to do was to be able to make sure that not only you, but we too understood learning, understood what religion was all about. How do we make it a way of life? It's all too well knowing facts, where somebody was born, where they died, how many surahs, that's all too well. But how do we make sure that we become human beings, all of us, how we become people that learn to live our life as Allah wants, taught by the Quran and the Masumi. So looking at that, we rethought of this and we sat together and this is what we came up with. I'd like your feedback because I want you to come back and tell me, well, I don't know whether this works or not, or maybe this will make it better because you are really the experts here. So the first thing, we said 5 areas, easy to remember, 5 fingers, 5 areas, okay? And 5 ahlul kisam, my goodness, I love that. So the first thing we thought was the Quran. And I know as a child, many, many years ago, oh God, too many years ago, I remember the first thing I learned was how to recite the Quran. And that stayed with me for life, even when the former Yugoslavia broke up. And I remember going to Trollhättan, where a lot of the refugees, lots of the people who were thrown out of the former Yugoslavia were sent there. I remember going up to them and they were put in really big warehouses. And many of them, they're told to change their names. So if your name was Muhammad, you were called Muhammad the Witch. And lots of things had been changed, but one thing they remembered out of everything was the insistence on recitation of the Quran. So the first thing we put up there is the Quran, the reciting of the Quran. And remember, the first order to humanity was Iqra, read, internalize, understand, apply, and teach. So the first thing is to recite the Quran and recite it properly, and then to be able to understand it slowly. The second thing we put down there was you have to communicate with Allah. Allah communicates to us through the Quran, but we've got to be able to communicate with Him. So the 2 things we thought that we communicate to Allah with are namaz or salah and dua. And really important to know them well. They're really the central pivot. As-salatu mi'raj al-mu'mineen, the Prophet said. Salah is that which takes you up. Mi'raj means getting close to Allah. So we thought that was really important to not only pray, but also to try and understand it. Because wherever you are, whether we're at home or we're on the road, Salah is that which keeps us together. On Friday, we have Salatul Jumu'ah, we have Salatul Jama'ah normally, and we will start all those. And then we have Salatul Eid, and then they're like concentric circles. And Salah of Hajj. So it becomes from this tiny place where we pray, it moves up into Salah in the Hajj, Salah we pray at Hajj globally all together. Okay, so that's our second thing, communicating with divinity. The third thing was to now understand, how do you internalize your belief? How do you understand? Because there's 3 usul, we all know that. Tawheed and Adala together, okay? And then you have the second one, which is Nubuwah and Imama. Normally we say 5 because we put these separately. And the last one is Qiyamah or Ma'ad. So basically it's Tawheed, understanding the one God. What does that mean? What does it mean that Allah sent guidance to the prophets and it continued with the Imams? And finally, we are all answerable. We're all accountable. And then with that also goes the 99 names of Allah. Got to understand them, got to apply them to our lives. Then we thought number 4 was you have to live Islam. It's all too well knowing it all, but you have to know what to do. Besides the fasting and the salah and the hajj and everything else, how do you behave towards family, towards friends, towards neighbors, towards other human beings, and all other aspects of life, from when a child is born up to when they die? What do you do? Everything is written down. Everything is taught to us. We need to know how to live Islam. Also important calendar dates like wafats and wiladats and Eids and absolutely everything. What do you do? How do you do it? How are we taught to do it? So that's basically living Islam. And then I have another question here. How do you test someone? How do you test their behaviors? Is there a way of testing them? So we're going to have this discussion with the teachers today. Inshallah, we got a meeting at about 12 o'clock and we'll have a discussion. But let's go on the fifth one and then I'll talk about that in a minute. So the fifth one is, in every salah, you and I say, Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Guide us on the straight path, or guide us on the highway to Jannah, or guide us to our full potential, to my personal best. That's what we ask. Guide us, right? And he says, Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. It is the path of those whom I have blessed. That's what Allah says. And we recite it every single day, at least 10 times. So what we can look at also, the fifth thing, is to look at role models. And we've called it Q people. Call them Q people because that's Quranic people. So that's the prophets, that's the Masumeen, that's the companions, that's the scholars, and also awesome men and women throughout history whom we look up as role models. See, as human beings, you and I, we're sort of programmed inside. There's a pre-program inside us where we want to incline towards those who bring out our godliness, who bring out that divinity that's inside us. They reflect divinity. When we look at them, we think of Allah. They bring out the best in us. Those literally who are free, and they teach us to be free. And they're our role models. So we've got to look at them. So these are the 5 things we will do at workshop. And hopefully with the new site, we're going to have a new website, you will see all these as part of your learning objectives and your learning outcomes. But let me go back to the question I asked you. How do you measure? How do you test whether somebody has learned all these? So I've written some things down. I'm going to pick the infant section, okay? So you can measure whether you can recite the Quran or not. You can do it for yourself. Can you recite it or can't you? The second thing is, do you know the names of the chapters of the Quran, of the surah of the Quran? That's easy. If you know them or you don't, are you able to recite them in salah? But not only recite them, do you know the meanings? At least the translations. That's measurable. You can actually do it yourself and find out. You can measure the fact that, do you know the names of the prophets? Within infants, I put Ulul Azm prophets. But say for all of us, do we know the names of the prophets? Do we know them in order as they're in Quran, as chronologically, who came first? And we remember we did a mnemonic of that. And inshallah, we'll continue doing those on Saturday. Do you know the names of the Masumeen? And if you know them, do you know one aspect of their lives? Do you know that? Now that's measurable. We can also measure whether you know the kalima, whether you know usuluddin, whether you know the Asma al-Husna. Just know them, right? It's easily done. Do you know the basics of tahara? Do you know how to do wudu? Do you know how to pray a 2-rakat salah or a 4-rakat salah properly? These are measurable. But what is not measurable is, do we actually walk the talk? How do you know? And that is all between us and Allah. You and Allah, me and Allah. The only thing that I can think of is where the Prophet said, he said that a human being lies beneath his tongue or behind his tongue, which means when a person speaks, that's when you can tell whether there is something there that attaches to divinity or it doesn't. So how should my speech be? How should I be speaking to people, to others, to my parents, to my siblings, to my teachers? So that's one thing we can measure, and actually watch and see. What else can you measure? And I'm going to leave that question with you, and maybe you can write to me, or maybe you can call me, or maybe you can message me, and we'll try and work out how we can measure whether somebody's behaviors are good or not. But I leave you with one hadith of the Prophet. So the Prophet said, it is easier to move a mountain than to change a bad behavior. That's quite difficult to think about. Can you imagine? Let's repeat that again. It is easier to move a mountain than to change a bad behavior. So we've got to think about all these things in our head and how we're going to progress from here. What motivates you? Inshallah, we'll talk about that next week. What makes you want to do something good? Is it because somebody gives you feedback? Is it because it has an advantage to your life? All these things you're going to think about. And we're going to put them into the learning of workshop. And inshallah, over the next few weeks, we will give you some sort of indication of how we will begin an online school. Okay, so as usual, as we do in workshop, we're going to end with the Surah Al-Fatiha, and we will remember all the marhumin, especially those of your family. Pray for those who are ill and those who are in trouble. Pray for all those people who are in so much difficulty because of this virus, because of the illness it's causing. Oh, it's so difficult. So let's pray for them too. We will do the dua for protection, li kamsatum, which you all do with me at workshop. And finally, the ziyarah of Imam Hussein. And remember, every time you drink water, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. And before we go on to that, remember, as soon as we finish, normally at workshop, I tell you to go to your classes to recite Quran. So do the same thing. As soon as we finish, pick up your Quran and recite at least 10 ayat. Can you do that? Okay, so let's start with Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. Close your eyes, look down, ask Allah to give the thawabs to all the marhumin, especially those of your family. Pray for those who are ill and those who are in trouble. لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة لي خمسة أطفي بها حر الوباء الحاتمة المصطفى والمرتضى وأبناهما والفاطمة السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. I'll see you again next Saturday, inshallah. Look after yourself, stay safe. Let us pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq to be able to implement these 5 areas of learning into our lives. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم في أمان الله الكريم.